28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire and nephew of Emperor Franz Joseph, was traveling with his wife in an open car with minimal security when they were all of a sudden fired upon by a Serbian teenager and killed. This assassination sparked the start of the Great World War. Austria-Hungary later sent a letter to Serbia with terms and agreements they were to abide by in order for some peace to be restored. However, Serbia refused most of the terms due to the effect it would have on their country, and because of this, Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. World War I was fought by Austria-Hungary, Turkey, and Germany as the Central Powers against the Allied forces consisting of Russia, Great Britain, Serbia, Belgium, and France. Trench battles dominated the war. It consisted of armies building a series of trenches opposite each other and then firing upon one another. The land between the trenches was referred to as no man's land, and many soldiers who passed into that area were killed. In addition to this, living conditions were often horrible and unsanitary in the trenches. At Ypres, British and German armies continued to engage in an extensive trench battle that had been going on for about 5 months. Both sides had dug an elaborate series of trenches that would be home for the soldiers for months or years to come. The living conditions were horrible though. On rainy days, the trenches would fill with water, the smell of rotting bodies lingered in the air, and rats raced to the corpses that lay on the ground. As winter arrived, the cold, bitter air just added to the challenging life the soldiers had to deal with, and the morale of both armies became increasingly low. One soldier, Arthur Taylor, describes his experience in the trenches in his diary. A pitch-dark night, and you're standing in a narrow trench, just wide enough to stop your shoulders from rubbing the sides. You can only see a breath in front of your face. You hear the hiss of bullets passing overhead. You cannot strike a match, as the flare might cost one of your mates his life. You move silently along, past the officer on duty. He is muffled up to the eyes, but the cold is bitter. You look on one platform, and there is the machine gun, stripped of his outer casing, ready to deal out death to any Turks that tried to rush our trench. We were only 40 yards apart. Fortunately, the soldiers already had what was called live and let live customs. Both armies would hold ceasefires during breakfast and dinner in order to make the living conditions for both armies a little more tolerable, by giving them a chance to have some rest and not worry about getting killed. On the day of the soldiers' first Christmas on that battlefield, they suddenly stopped fighting. It started when the Germans began lighting candles and setting up trees in honor of the Christmas holiday. Then, some German soldiers emerged from their trenches and crossed over no man's land, shouting to the other side not to shoot. The British responded with kindness and confusion. They joined the Germans, perplexed by the whole scene, and the armies crowded together in no man's land, where they had been trying to kill each other just hours earlier. The soldiers exchanged gifts and mingled with each other during the holiday. There are even some accounts of soldiers playing football games together. In one case, a German soldier gave a British soldier a haircut. The surprising change in weather also added to the festive spirit. Snow fell on the frozen ground, making it easier for soldiers to walk over the mud. The harsh weather stopped and the sky cleared up as the soldiers celebrated one of the happiest times of the year together. The truce put a pause on the soldiers' hardship and boosted their morale after they had been fighting for their lives just the day before. Eventually, the truce came to an end as both sides would rather win than give up. Still, soldiers recounted their shock and surprise at the whole event. Captain A.D. Chater of the 2nd Battalion Gordon Highlanders wrote a letter to his mother saying, "I think I have seen today one of the most extraordinary sights that anyone has ever seen." However, despite the hope and joy that filled the air, some soldiers did not approve and in some cases even tried shooting at the enemy to make the truce stop. They did not trust their enemies and did not like the idea of being so open and vulnerable. Luckily, despite their attempts, the truce continued on and in some cases lasted until New Year's. The Christmas spirit was strong on the battlefield, and soldiers laughed and shared pleasantries with one another. Both sides sacrificed a chance to attack their enemy and win the battle in order to have a moment of pleasure, happiness, and peace, to step away from the battle that had claimed so many lives, and to escape the horrible conditions they were forced to live in order to have the chance to celebrate Christmas, a holiday of peace and hope. With all the celebrating, exchanging of gifts, and mingling, the morale of the soldiers increased drastically from its previous state before Christmas. Getting the opportunity to live another day, having good weather conditions, and experiencing positive social interaction improved the attitudes of the soldiers and made their holiday much better. It also created a chance for them to make new relationships and gave the soldiers the opportunity to meet their enemy and hear their viewpoint of the war. The truce also gave them time to collect themselves and strategize. For example, many officers used the opportunity to collect the dead and wounded soldiers they were previously unable to retrieve. Surprisingly, the two armies would even have joint burial services for their fallen soldiers. Separately, they also used the chance to dig new trenches and expand their elaborate network in order to improve their chances of winning on the battlefield. The Christmas truce has laced itself into modern-day popular culture, such as music and television. This is the case in Paul McCartney's 1983 single, Pipes of Peace, and French movie director Christian Carion's 2000 film Joyeux Noël. Also, in 2011, the English Premier League marked the Christmas truce by setting up an annual soccer tournament every December at Ypres, with young players from clubs based in England, Germany, Belgium, and France. Even the Queen of England referred to the Christmas truce of 1914 and its importance in history during her Christmas message in 2014. Not only that, but the Christmas truce is an inspiring, hope-filled story of soldiers who stopped fighting and celebrated a holiday of peace, hope, and love that is enjoyed all around the world. These were soldiers who were taught to hate their enemy and trained to kill the people they were fighting. This is what makes this unplanned, uncoordinated event so special, because it shows that even the greatest of enemies can unite through a common interest. Their actions taken many years ago teach people today about the power of hope, understanding, and forgiveness. In summary, the Christmas truce was a ceasefire that took place on Christmas of 1914 during World War I. British and German soldiers celebrated the holiday together after living in horrible conditions in their trenches for many months. The truce gave soldiers a chance to collect themselves, and it boosted their morale after being extremely low. The Christmas truce is a joyous story of peace and humanity during a war that claimed the lives of more than 20 million people. It is an example of how even the worst of enemies can unite. Despite being romanticized through the years, the story of the Christmas truce is an inspirational story of hope to this day.